So guys, if you're thinking about moving to Vero Beach in 2025, or maybe you just did, so whether you're coming from the Northeast, the Midwest, California, or even out of the country, it really doesn't matter because a huge life shift is about to happen. Now, living in Florida is a completely different pace, and Vero Beach, it's not like Miami, Orlando, or Tampa. It's going to be quiet, it's local, and it's built for a different kind of lifestyle. Now, in this video, I'm going to be walking you through exactly what life is going to look like here. We're going to go over the good, the bad, and the stuff that nobody really tells you until you've already unpacked. Now, we're going to be hitting on the pace of life, the housing market, insurance costs, weather, what people actually do for fun here, and even a few things that might catch you off guard. So if you're making the move or you're still trying to figure out if this place is the right for you, then this should help you get a real sense of what to expect. Now, life here in Vero moves at a speed that you can actually enjoy. There's plenty to do, but it never feels frantic, and that balance is exactly why people like to stay here. So you could start the morning with a 5-minute coffee run, shoot across town in 10 minutes and still have time to grab the dog and make a beach walk before work starts, because even if you live way out on the west side, you're only 15 minutes away from the sand. Now, traffic, not really a thing here. US 1 and 60 stay pretty light. The barrier island roads and the 2 bridges that we have, so for such a small town, having 2 bridges to and from the beach really makes a big difference. So those roads are a breeze, and the parking at the beach is still free, which means that the only headache that you're going to be having is choosing which spot to back in the truck. Now, if water is your love language, then Vero spoils you. So we've got multiple free public boat ramps on the lagoon here. We've got a handful up in Sebastian, and nobody blinks if you park your boat on the side of your house, because half of your neighbors are going to be doing the same unless you're in those restricted HOA neighborhoods. Now, you just drop in, you idle through the mangroves, and you're fishing or tubing in minutes. Now, whenever you're all done, because everything's so close together, you can finish the day over at Central Beach, where you can step off the sand, go straight into a bar, have a cold one with some buddies, maybe enjoy just like a nice sit-down dinner with the family. You can grab some dinner, catch some live music, and still be home before the ice melts in your cooler in the boat. The social vibe here is more small town Florida, but it's in the best way. So people are holding doors for you, and you'll find yourself on Florida time before you know it. Now, service does run a touch slower. Conversations will run a little bit longer, and nobody's really rushing you out of the booth. Now, that pace stays locked in thanks to a strict 3-story height cap on new buildings that we have here. That's very rare in Florida. In fact, I don't even know if there's any other county in Florida that has that height limit restriction, because it seems like the coastline is just littered with high-rise condos to make sure that they capitalize on it. We don't have those though. We don't have the high-rise condos or the beach shadows, just the open sky, the clean views, and the crowds that stay manageable even in season. So if you're coming from a city of glass towers, honking horns, the adjustment feels dramatic, but give it a week and you'll wonder why you ever lived any other way. Alrighty, now one of the biggest surprises for people moving to Vero Beach, especially from the high tax states, is how affordable the overall cost of living can be. So property taxes here are incredibly reasonable, especially once you file for that homestead exemption. That one move alone can knock off thousands of your tax bill each year. So a big difference whenever people ask me, hey, what are the property taxes on this house before making an offer? I tell them it doesn't really matter because we have homestead exemption. So one house listed for sale can have property taxes of $1,500 a year, and the house across the street can be $5,000 a year. The reason is that house for $5,000 a year either A, doesn't have homestead exemption, or B, was recently sold and then reassessed at the new taxable value. So it doesn't really matter what the property taxes are currently, because whenever that property changes hands, it's going to be reassessed. Now, a lot of out-of-state buyers come in expecting Florida to be more expensive than it really is, but once you settle in and you become a resident, difference becomes pretty obvious. Now, insurance, that's another story. This is Florida. Hurricanes are part of the package. So yes, you're going to need some windstorm coverage. And if you're anywhere near a flood zone, you'll need that flood insurance too. Now, if you're buying a newer home or something built to the newer code, roads, then you'll probably have a decent wind mitigation credit that would help you lower those premiums. But if you're looking at older homes, especially near the water, be prepared for some sticker shock. But the good news is we can run those numbers for you ahead of time to help you budget for it, so there's no surprises after you close. The way we do that is we have the inspection period. We have an inspector come in, they give you the wind mitigation report, the 4-point if it's an older home, and we send that off to the insurance company, get the quote all before the end of your expiration of the inspection period, which means that your deposit is going to be fully refundable up until the end of that inspection period. So that's how we mitigate that. Another thing is there's no state income tax here. You probably know that, but that's a massive win for anyone coming from New York, California, or just about anywhere else. Now, whether you're working remotely or drawing retirement income, that is going to be money back in your pocket every single year. It's one of the biggest reasons that we've seen so many people make the move to Florida. Now, electric bills in the summer, they can climb up pretty high. The AC just doesn't want to shut off from June through September, but otherwise utilities are pretty straightforward. Now, if you're on city water, you're going to be paying through Indian River County utilities, and most of the time your trash and recycling are included with that. But if you're further west, more HOA zones, kind of where I am, then you might be going through Waste Management or a different company there too. Talking about going further, way out more west in like the more rural area, you might be on well water, which cuts down on the bill, but comes with a little bit more upkeep. So you have that with the water softener, trying to make sure that that well water doesn't have that sulfur smell. You can deal with that too. But grocery wise, you've got the usual options. Publix is going to be the go-to. Aldi's is probably going to be here soon because Winn-Dixie just went out. Hopefully Aldi's going to be taking that over. So I do know that they merged or one bought the other one. So hopefully that is going to be an up and coming one. And if you're trying to save, there is Walmart in both Vero Beach and Sebastian, which is always an option. Now here in Vero, don't expect a Whole Foods or a Trader Joe's in town yet. Might be coming, but not yet. But you can still find some good quality produce at the local farmers markets. Now, eating out isn't what I would call cheap, but it's more affordable than what you pay in the bigger cities like Miami, Boca, or even Orlando. And you're supporting the mom and pop businesses instead of the massive chains, which I think makes it worth it. And then there's a few of the sneaky Florida expenses like pest control, which you're probably going to want to do quarterly because yeah, the bugs here are real. You'll need to also factor in the lawn care if you're not a mow it yourself type, where it can get pretty hot in the summer. Sometimes you don't want to be out there sweating, and if you're working a full-time job with a family, I understand. I have lawn care myself. And also too, if you're in a single family home, hurricane prep costs are just part of the deal. So shutters, a generator, maybe a few backup supplies. But again, most of these are one-time or seasonal investments that pay off in peace of mind. So you only have to go get them once. I wouldn't really try to rush out while everyone's in the rush. When we're in that cone, that projected cone, that's whenever everybody tries to rush out and get the supplies. So make sure that you do that beforehand. Now, I will say that one of the things that people notice when they start house hunting here in Vero Beach is how much more you get for your money here. So whether it's square footage, it's lot size, or just peace and quiet, you're getting more here than in most cities, especially if you're coming from somewhere like South Florida, New York, or California. And because of this, and because of the height restrictions too in Vero, you won't see the high rises blocking your sunset views or jamming up traffic with all that extra population. And most of what you'll find here are single story, single family homes, either the low rise condos by the beach or the townhomes, and they're all going to be spread out, low key, and built for livability. Now, when it comes to choosing where to live, there's a pretty clear divide between the east side and the west sides of town. Now, the east side, especially closer to the beach, is where you're going to be finding the more established neighborhoods. So a lot of those homes were built in the 60s through the 90s, and they've got that old Florida charm. So think the mature trees, the larger yards, also the older plumbing, roofs, and sometimes smaller square footage and smaller ceiling heights. But prices are still higher here because you're paying for location. You can walk to the beach in a lot of cases, hit Central Beach for dinner, and live in one of the most desirable parts of town. Now head west out where I am, past 58th Avenue and towards I-95, then everything changes. So you're going to be finding a ton of newer construction, gated communities with HOA fitness centers, lawn maintenance included. These neighborhoods are quieter, more affordable, and give you more home for your money. But whether it's Point West, Verona Trace, or one of the newer developments popping popping up along 82nd Avenue. These areas are going to be perfect if you're looking for something move-in ready without the beachside price tag or the beachside insurance. If you're thinking about beachside living, just know that it comes with a premium. Lots are smaller, many homes are older, and you're going to be paying for the walkability, but for a lot of people, it is worth it. Now, there's something special about grabbing coffee in the morning, walking down to the beach. I'm not going to discount that, or being able to have dinner at night. The lifestyle there is hard to beat, but inventory is limited and competition can be high because they're not making more of those beachside homes. In fact, a lot of these beachside homes are going to be single family homes that were built in the 60s that they tear down. If you want to have, newer construction, they take a spot from an old house, tear it down, and then renovate it or whatever. So that's typically the way these newer construction on the island homes go. You'll have to also decide between condo living and single family homes. Now, condos are going to be lower maintenance, especially if you're not full time, but those HOA fees can stack up fast. Now, on the other hand, single family homes give you space, room for toys like boats, trailers, RVs, and fewer restrictions, unless you're in an HOA, of course. And a quick heads up, most of the newer communities west of town are going to have some sort of HOA. So if you're planning on fencing in the yard, parking a boat out in front of the house, installing solar panels, it's going to be worth double checking the rules ahead of time. Now, the rental market here is competitive too. Seasonal rentals, especially near the beach, tend to go fast and for top dollar. Now, long-term rentals are out there, but newer homes are still in high demand. And the best listings don't sit around for very long. So whether you're buying or renting, having someone local here who knows the neighborhood and the market is key to getting what you want. Alrighty, now let's not sugarcoat it. Florida is hot. Like, step outside and start sweating kind of hot. From May, well, this May has been pretty nice, but I would say from June through October, the humidity is just gonna wrap you around like a wet blanket, and it does not let up. Now, if you're not used to it, it's going to hit pretty hard, and most people end up showering twice a day, and anything outdoors, whether it's mowing the lawn, walking the dog, or loading groceries, becomes a bit of a sweat session. Now, you either learn to deal with it or you learn to adjust your schedule around it, which is exactly what most locals do. Now, with that said, something that's worth pointing out though is just a couple days ago, whenever I was kind of getting ready for this video, I saw in the news that places like up north there, the Jersey area, the Carolinas, they're getting hit with heat indexes over 105 degrees. Meanwhile, here, whenever I was, hearing this news, it was 84 and relatively nice outside. In fact, I was, organizing some stuff in the garage and hardly ever even broke a sweat doing it. So that was pretty cool. See, one thing that keeps the heat here in check is really that coastal breeze. It makes a big difference. It keeps the mornings cooler. It helps the heat feel more manageable, and it stops everything from turning into that brutal, stagnant heat that you get kind of in the middle of the state. Now, the tropical climate definitely has its downsides, but that breeze, it's just one of the perks that makes summer here a little bit easier to live with. So if you're gonna have heat, at least have that ocean breeze. Now, one of the best kept secrets about living in Vero Beach is that you start to build your daily rhythm around the weather. Now, summer mornings, they are perfect, so the air is still kind of fresh, the sun's not brutal yet, and that's whenever everyone gets their stuff done. They're walking their dogs, they're making their grocery runs and whatever. But by 2 or 3 p.m., like clockwork, you are probably going to be hit with a big storm. Now, these aren't just the light drizzles either. Typically, I'm talking about like mini hurricanes. So I'm talking lightning, the sideways rain, the wind gusts, and just as fast as it rolls in, it's gone. When you get used to it, you just kind of plan around it. But mornings, they are for the errands. That's your beach time. And then when you get to the afternoons, that's time for Netflix or, if you're working office time, just anything having to do with being in the AC. Now, evenings, they cool down just enough for a walk, grilling out back, having some patio time with the friends and that sort of deal. So I think that you just learn to kind of deal with it and work around it down. Now, when it comes to hurricane season, yes, it's real, but it's not constant panic like the news wants to make it seem. The seasons technically run from June through November, but the busiest time is usually August and September. And most years, Vero dodges the worst of it. And they have a rumor even that Vero Beach got his name from storms veering off at the last minute. I kind of tend to disagree since we had Francis, Jean, and Charlie all in one year that affected Vero, but those weren't really that bad. But you still need to be ready. That means knowing how to use your shutters, maybe investing in a generator, and just having a basic plan in case something strong heads our way. Now, it's one of those things where if you're prepared, you don't really stress about it too much. And yeah, there's a lot of things that you can do to mitigate that. Now, on the flip side, the weather is what makes outdoor living here amazing the rest of the year. So you can use your patio, your pool, your grill all year round, fishing, golfing, beach walks, even tennis. It does not stop. And when winter rolls around, the temperature dips into the 50s or 60s. Locals throw on a hoodie and act like it's freezing, but it's honestly some of the best weather that you'll ever live in here. Whenever that humidity drops and it gets to those lower temperatures, it's one of the best times of year to be here in Vero. Another thing, you'll also need to get used to the bugs. So between the mosquitoes, the no-see-ums, which are my least favorite, and the occasional palmetto bugs showing up in your garage, pest control is just going to be part of life here. And most homes are going to have those screened-in patios. We call them Florida rooms. And having that screened-in area are game changers. So you can sit outside with no bugs. It still lets you enjoy the breeze. But just make sure you're on that quarterly pest plan that we talked about earlier, and you'll be fine. Now, another thing is that living in Vero shifts your pace in a way that just makes sense. Now, things slow down, but not in a boring way. You'll find yourself spending more time outside without even thinking about it. So whether it's the beach walks, grilling in the backyard, or evening bike rides after dinner, the lifestyle here naturally pulls you outdoors. Now, the social scene is different from what you might expect or be used to, especially if you're coming from a bigger city. But there's not much of a nightlife here. There is quite a bit if you know where to look, as far as small bars, but it's not like a club scene where you have a downtown strip where you could just bar hop and do all that kind of stuff. That's not the way it is here, but most people are okay with that. Now, dinner tends to happen a little bit earlier, happy hours by the beach, boat days with friends, backyard get-togethers. That is what weekends look like here for most people. It's going to be laid back, and it's more about who you're with than where you're going. Now, you'll also notice fewer chains and more locally owned spots, and that becomes part of the routine. Now, Saturdays at the Ocean Drive Farmers Market is pretty common. Grabbing a coffee from Chelsea's place, supporting the businesses that actually make this place feel more like home. And it's one of the biggest adjustments without even realizing it, but you'll stop cramming up your schedule. So things are going to be moving a little slower, and before long, you will too. Now, you'll start spacing out your day, running fewer errands at once, and giving yourself time to enjoy the in-between moments. And that's just how people live here. And then once you're settled into it, it's hard to go back to that normal way of life of the hustle and bustle. All right, now there's a reason that people move to Vero Beach and never leave it. It's not just the weather or the beach, it's the lifestyle that comes along with it. And one of the biggest perks is how close everything is in this city. So no matter where you live, you're about 10 to 15 minutes away from the beach, and that's not an exaggeration either. So even if you're out west by I-95, you can still hit the sand in no time. And unlike a lot of other places in Florida, we've got free public parking at the beaches, so no meters, no crazy parking garages, just park and walk, and it makes those quick beach trips actually feel quick. Now, the community feel here is another thing that stands out right away. People are going to be holding doors, wave as you drive by, and if you're here long enough, you'll realize that you can't even make a run to Publix without running into somebody that you know. Now, when you move into a neighborhood, that's another thing too that my wife and I noticed is when we got into our neighborhood of Oaks of Vero, people actually went out of their way to introduce themselves. Some of them brought over baked goods, some wanted to bring over beer and hang out on our back patio. So that's just the way of life that it goes around here, and it doesn't take long for you to feel like part of something. Now, another good thing about Vero, it's also one of the safest towns on the Treasured Coast. So whether you've got kids, grandkids, or you're just looking for a peaceful place to settle down, the low crime right here, the quiet neighborhoods, they make it easy to relax. Now, you don't have to overthink safety, and the peace of mind is a big difference in daily life that we're starting to notice. Now, if you're someone who loves to stay active like myself, then you're gonna love the fact that Vero Beach has invested a lot into their infrastructure, their parks, and everything else like that. Now, Central Beach and Ocean Drive are all walkable with great restaurants, shops, and bars, and actually feels like a hometown strip instead of a touristy zone that you get in a lot of other Florida where you feel like it's built more for the tourists than the residents. Vero Beach is the opposite, where that central area of the beach there feels more of a hometown strip. Now, Humison Park, that's another great spot that has a playground. You've got Kilwins across the street, picnic areas right by the beach. So that's another good spot that we decided to utilize a little bit more as Cannon gets older. Riverside Park has walking trails, tennis courts, fishing spots, and shaded spots just to sit around and breathe. And you've got the Jungle Trail up near Sebastian if you're into biking, plus kayak launches like the one there or the one at McWilliams Park. And for you dog lovers out there, this next part is huge. So we've got a 5-acre dog park right on the river. The Vero Beach Dog Park is fully fenced in, it's shaded in most of the parts, and it has plenty of room for your dogs to run around and have fun. But what makes it really unique is that it sits right by the water. I've never seen a dog park on the river before, and they built it out in a way that has these little extras to make it feel next level. Now, when we were talking about kayaks before, there is a secure kayak launch nearby, and if you want to bring your dog out for a paddle, you can literally dock your kayak, walk through the gate, and let your dog loose in the park. You can hang out by the water, let your dog run, and not feel like you're boxed into some small urban dog run, kind of like how I was dealing with up in Orlando with the AstroTurf. I don't even know how they drain that. It's kind of nasty, but here, totally different. It's a hidden gem, and it's one of those quality of life things that locals love. Now, the best part though that we already talked about is that the town is small enough that getting anywhere from one stretch of Vero Beach to the other doesn't take more than 15 minutes. So whether you're heading to the beach, hitting the trail, or grabbing dinner downtown, it's all within reach with no stress, no long commutes. And the local events here make it even better. So you've got the TC Palm, which is a magazine here of Treasure Coast Magazine, which is releasing 5 cool things to do every single weekend. They always have a new article that comes out every single week mentioning what's going to be happening there. So you've got the Saturday Farmers Market on Ocean Drive, seasonal food truck events, art shows, holiday parades, all fun stuff without the massive crowds that you're going to find in those bigger cities. And if you're looking for a place where you can actually breathe, stay active, and feel part of a community, then Vero Beach checks every box. All right, so guys, with all that said, if you're planning on making the move to Vero Beach or anywhere in Florida really, just know that we've got you covered. So my contact information for my team and I is on the screen, and whether you prefer to call, text, or email, you can reach out anytime. I personally work with buyers relocating to this area, and if Vero Beach doesn't end up being the right fit, then no problem. We've got trusted agents all across the state that can help you land exactly where you need to be. So that first initial call that you make to us, that's really going to be where we figure out which part of Florida is going to work best for you based on your lifestyle, based on what you're looking for. We can help you kind of narrow that down and critique where it is. Now, there's also a lot of new construction happening right now, and many of the builders that we work with are offering some pretty aggressive incentives, things like closing cost credits, interest rate buy downs, or even price cuts, aggressive price cuts on quick move-in homes. But here's the key. A lot of these incentives are only available through us because we have relationships with these builders that give our clients access to offers that you won't find online or by walking into the sales office on your own. So if you're serious about making a move, then reach out. We'll walk you through everything, no pressure, no sales pitch, just straight answers and a plan that makes sense for you. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one next week. Have a good one. Bye.